Hello and welcome to this episode of the Meet Me in Sacred Space podcast. I am your host, Lori A. Andrus, and today I have a very special guest, my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Vanessa Sage. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! I'm so excited that you're here. It's always really the word delicious is coming to mind. It's always really delicious when we sink into conversation together. And for those of you who've been listening to my podcasts for a while, you know that Vanessa has been a guest many times. And I just get really excited when we have this opportunity to sink into a very rich conversation. And as we were kind of just chatting a little bit before hitting the record button, um, we were just talking about the conversation and where we want it to go. And Vanessa says, I just want to have fun. Let's just have fun. And then she followed that with, how good are we willing to feel? So perfect. So perfect. Such a great way to begin this. So before we dive in any further, I want to share a little bit about Vanessa. So I'm going to give you a little quick bio recap here. Vanessa Sage is a priestess, a cultural anthropologist, and a poet who brings a breath of fresh air and vital leadership to the reemergence, reclamation, and cultural shift in divine feminine consciousness. As an academic, business mentor, and coach with over 20 years of experience, Vanessa guides creative spiritual visionaries through immersive and transformational programs to experience their true essence and sovereign power. Vanessa combines a strong critical mind with a childlike sense of wonder. Yes, Kermit Frog is her hero. She combines these to seek to understand multiple perspectives and remain hopeful in a challenging world. Resilient, determined, and with an incredible ability to step out of her comfort zones, Vanessa is carving a new path for others to feel at ease in their own skin, find joy in the everyday life, and to live a life of peace and purpose. Yes, yes. So, welcome, Vanessa.
Oh
Thank you
my
for being
goodness,
here.
thank you. That is actually the first time I've ever heard that read out loud because it's a new bio. I've recently gone through a major personal transformation and part of that was rewriting my bio. And so to actually hear you say that out loud, it was really very special. And for it to be you, again, is very, very special. So thank
Mm,
you.
thank you. Thank you. How good are you willing to feel? Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you're right now. You're actually, as we're recording this episode, I think you're running a program entitled that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. And
Yeah.
this was part of the shift. So, um, back in 2016, I started asking myself that question. I was being coached by my one of my mentors, who I've now done coach training with, Dr. Julia B. Colwell, and she asked me that question. How good are you willing to feel? And I started asking myself that question all the time in so many different ways. And at that point in my life, I was, I had been in business for a little while. I'd been doing this work for a little while, but was really struggling to make it work. And when I started asking that question, I started making new commitments with myself, everything changed. And so recently I went through, what I would call a dark night of the soul. And I think this is just part of my journey on this planet, is that my incarnation really enjoys going into the dark and discovering what is there, just like Anana. It's a cyclic thing. And so I was there and I started asking myself that question again: how good am I willing to feel? How good am I willing to feel? And and then from that place, like, new hope sprung. And I knew that this needed to be a new direction in my work, that I had really lived this for a significant period of time, and that I could then now give it to others. It came out so easily and so well received. And I do think it's actually going to be a core offering of mine moving forward. And feels really good actually to bring that piece in, because I do have a couple of coach trainings. And while I've been doing the priestess work mostly, to just expand into this area feels very, very good to me. And then I just ask myself all the time, how good am I willing to feel? Especially when things aren't feeling good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of those things that when we're in that place of the dark cave of transformation, the challenge, when the challenge arises that presents the opportunity to enter the cave of transformation, it can be really challenging to say, how good am I willing to feel? How can it be possible? And so I'm kind of curious for you how, um, like the energy around that. Like, I know you kind of talked about it a little bit, but can you share a little bit more about how that tapped in and opened up for you? Like, yeah, what was some of the magic that just kind of relit that spark, that little inner light?
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important, because this is one of the things I've found is that when I ask that question, it can be very challenging. It's a very challenging question to
Mhm.
ask, and to receive that. Like, this some of the feedback that I've received. And then I think we're also kind of living in a time right now where we're questioning, we're questioning power structures, we're questioning kind of our social equality, all of these kinds of things. And so when we ask the question, how good am I willing to feel in that kind of space, it can also feel very edgy. And one of the things that I have discovered through in my own journey is that it is the most important question that I can ask myself. And it comes from like it comes from fertile ground. It is the seed of hope that our world so desperately needs. And the truth of the matter is, if we were all willing to ask that question, if we were all willing to really allow ourselves to become embodied, and to really take the time to understand how it is that we're actually feeling, because often we're so cut off from our bodies, we're so cut off from our sensations, we have actually no idea how we feel.
Mhm.
And we're just kind of numbing out and going through the motions and all of these kinds of things. And how is that serving anybody?
Right,
if we
right.
could if we could ask this question and bring our joy and our hope and our love to the world, I truly believe the world would change.
Mm.
it's
Mhm.
it's important that we feel good. It really is. Because it's from that place that creativity comes. And we need our creativity right now in
Yeah,
order to solve some of these problems that we're facing.
yeah. You hit like it's interesting because I've heard you use this phrase. I've heard this phrase in other places, right? But I don't think I've ever landed in the word feel until just now when you were speaking about this in the into the feeling word and all of the layers of connection to feel in life. And wow, like something just like clicked together for me. So I really hope that's happening for our listeners there too, because there's something really powerful about that. And I think, the piece that you brought in about being disconnected from our bodies and reconnecting with our bodies. And I think that that piece is something that you have really put a lot of energy and awareness and attention towards within yourself. Um, how do you feel in your body? How do you feel and share your body? And so I'd love if you just kind of touch on that a little bit too, because that's a big part of your journey.
Yeah, thank you. It is.
Mhm.
I think it comes from my path as a priestess. when I entered women's spirituality, um, quite a long time ago, uh, for the first time in my life, I saw images of the goddess. I'd never seen the goddess. We don't even know, she's right back there. You can kind of see,
Yeah.
and if you're if you're watching, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm talking about like the goddess images like Venus of Willendorf, and it was a moment in my life, just even just seeing that completely changed everything. I am a larger woman living in a world where there are, particular beauty standards that don't necessarily include me. And so part of my path is to continually choose to come home to my body, come home to loving it. Not easy in this world. And to share that with others. And so one of the things that I'll often do is I will, it's not necessarily easy for me. I will challenge myself to share this body that I'm living in, and really affirm for myself and for everyone that you have the body of a goddess. I have the body of a goddess. All bodies are beautiful, and it's just part of my path. And
Yeah.
like any aspect of anyone's path, it's not like I wake up every day and I'm just like, yeah. But you can continue to come back to that. You can anchor back into what you truly believe in, and and again, how good am I willing to feel in this body as well.
Right. Right.
I also live with chronic pain and chronic health conditions, and so again, it's an interesting question to ask myself, it doesn't get tired. It doesn't. I never get tired of it.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love this. Thank you. The um the next piece that's showing up is the piece around how you spoke of bringing together your trainings in the coaching and mentoring aspect with your anthropology background and the priestessing, and how those are newly like merging together in a new way. And as I was sitting with this prior to our podcast, the question prior to our interview, the question that came forward, or conversation piece, was about giving ourselves permission to pivot. And it feels like from an external place, it may look like a pivot, but it's actually, as I'm listening to you, I'm feeling the integration piece that's happening, like a new layer of integration. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that journey into that cave of healing and transformation, but also into the cave of creation that you went into following that, and how that has been integrating. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to share a little bit about Inanna first.
Yeah.
So Inanna, a Sumerian goddess who decides to go into the underworld to meet her sister Shkigal. And at each, she has 7 gates, and at each gate, she has to remove a piece of her clothing, a piece of of what her ego self really,
Mm-hmm.
to go to the underworld to meet Erishkigal, and then to die. And she dies she is dead for 3 days and 3 nights. Very common
Mm-hmm.
theme: 3 days, 3 nights.
Yes.
And then she returns, and at each layer, she at each gate again she returns, and she puts back on these ornaments, and
Yeah.
but in a different perspective, right? And so I willingly chose. I said, okay, so how can I strip down the ego, right? Strip down what I think I am, right? Um, and let it all go. Would I be
Mm-hmm.
willing to let it all go? What would remain if I let it all go? Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happened was I found, and this is actually the first time I'm talking about this, um, what I found is a deep, deep love for my partner. We've been engaged forever, and I asked her to marry me finally. We set a date.
Mm.
Because I thought, you know what? If everything falls away, all I need is the love of my family and my close friends and the love of my life. So that was one of
Beautiful.
the first things that happened. And then the second thing that happened was I followed my joy. I just
Mm.
I let myself explore what I wanted to explore outside of any concept of who I was supposed to be, how I was supposed to be presenting in the world. Because when you're in business, there's a brand, you know,
Mhm.
letting that
Mhm.
go. Like what actually is true. Now it turns out that it's still true. But that's the thing. That's the thing.
Right.
In some ways, right? In other
Yeah.
ways, there is a shift that's happening, and I know that it's there. I think people who may be very close to me can feel that.
Yeah.
Um, but what beyond this? It's like I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm still in the underworld. So the other thing that happened, so I followed my joy. Um, Actually discovered a love of makeup. Who knew? That was completely new to me. I mean, I never was interested in that. Um, and I fell in love with myself,
Mm.
and I found peace, and I found faith again.
Yeah.
And I understood what service really meant. And service for me is not it's not about this external world so much as it is about a deep, abiding faith and love of something beyond myself that I truly wish to be a conduit and a vessel for. And this is kind of common priestess language, right? But
There's the
it
head knowing and
landed.
then the, yeah.
It landed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you understand the mystery. You do. When you live it, you understand it. And I understood my personal strength and my personal power.
Mm.
I knew who I was. I knew what my voice was. I wasn't afraid of my voice. I wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of myself.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a beautiful thing. And I let myself do and create what I wanted to do and create. I let go of all my launch plans. They're all gone. I don't, and I've just allowed myself.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I feel like I'm floating, like what's happening?
Mhm.
But I have complete trust that it will all be fine.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that before. So those aspects that you're talking about in terms of like kind of reintegrating,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, right. Okay. Yes. Yes. Hello,
Mm.
priestess. I'm here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, hello, lover of life. Hello, poet. Hello. So, okay, then I could find out, like, I could step into those things in a way that actually felt real and true. And it's not that they
Mhm.
didn't before, but a part of me that must have questioned, right? And I
Yeah.
think that that's a
Yeah.
healthy, normal thing.
Yes.
And I mean, how wonderful to explore that,
Right.
to just say, okay, am I willing to let myself am I willing to let myself go to find myself?
Yeah. That's such a big statement. And there's a lot of many layers to it. Am I willing to let myself go to find myself again? So, the other piece that I had kind of typed out as something to connect on was that place of like really cultivating the courage to not only sink deeper into our work, but to also express that in our lives. And this is something that I feel like you have always done, but yet you're at like another layer of what that is. I'd love to hear you speak to that a little bit.
You know, when you face death, whether it is like a physical death or metaphoric death, and when you are challenged to your core, there are a couple of choices in that space. One is to fall down, which is okay. It's actually a good thing sometimes to fall down and to just let yourself sink into that. But I'm a warrior at heart, and so I let myself fall down, and then I picked up my sword.
Mm.
And I often think, if you've heard the Aurora song Warrior, it's a beautiful song if you have not heard it. And I often think about that song and just like this holding of the sword in front of your heart, and allowing yourself to be as strong and as sovereign and as powerful as you truly are, and to actually cut away the ideas that other people have of you. For me, it was like cutting away people pleasing. It was like, no, it was saying no in a very like clear and powerful boundaried kind of way, but saying yes to life. And at the
Mm.
end of my life, I want to know I've lived my life,
Right.
not someone else's idea of what my life is supposed to be, or someone else's idea of who I'm supposed to be because of what they need me to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like I can't do it, and
Yeah.
even my voice, like I let myself speak boldly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, it's even almost like these shackles of the spiritual industry where we're supposed to always be kind and gentle and soft. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm honest with myself, yes, I am. That is part of who I am, but it is not the whole picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the whole picture. It's
Mm-hmm.
fierce and gentle, and I
Yes.
needed the fierceness back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like lion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That is that energy of like being able to navigate and hold space for and be in a healed relationship with our own vastness of different emotions, including of that of rage and warrior and fierceness and that soft gentle place, and being able to hold both of that like all in one container, being able to be balanced with all of that. That's what I'm hearing from you, that place of like this, like I can hold this, like there's a recognition of how you can not only hold it but stand in it and allow it to flow through powerfully. Yeah.
And allow
That's
oneself to be multifaceted. Well,
yes.
like
Yes.
what happened? What has happened in our world that we're all supposed to be the one thing? And like this, it's it's not true. It's just
Right.
not. And it's hurting us.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm-hmm.
ideas
Yeah.
that we internalize. At least I have. I'll speak for myself. But you internalize these ideas of these flattened ideas of who you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
and then we project those onto others, and and vice versa, and it's like, this is not the way. And if
Right.
I'm a priestess guiding others to find their own power, how can I possibly tell another human being that they are one thing? That is
Mm.
not what power is. Power is essence. And to
Yeah.
be in one's essence is to allow energy to flow through you in the way it is meant to at the time, and be open to the creative force that always is with you.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Artists don't just paint one thing. Picasso, I mean, we don't know Picasso's problematic, but
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
No hate on me because of Picasso, everyone.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think that is one of the big pieces I think in this area of spirituality and embodying our spiritual, our own unique spirituality is really have to break down some of those old ideals of who and what our spiritual teachers look like, what and how we perceive and think they live, and really let that go. Yeah, there's a lot of space around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I
uh,
mean, as a spiritual teacher, and you're a spiritual teacher as well. I mean, I think part of our job is to break it down, is to
yes.
actually
Yeah.
is to break down those stereotypes
Hmm.
and to
Hmm.
give people like, okay, right.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to, only wear white and talk in a soft voice and like insert whatever stereotype you want in that space.
Hmm.
But we can be leaders in that realm where we
Yeah.
can say, actually, the spiritual path is messy,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
birth and life is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's have,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's have fun along the
have fun
way,
with it. Let's
Yeah.
have fun
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I'm thinking about is kind of this misperception that I had very early along the spiritual path, which was one that there was this ideal place of, what a spiritual teacher or somebody who's embodied their spirituality is and looks like. But I also had this perception that at some point, the challenge, the struggle, the cycle or the journey would, all of a sudden things would become easy. And I think, this is one of the places you and I, when we kind of sit down and like, sink into really rich conversations with each other, this is one of the places that often we delve into is some of those not so shiny places, some of those places where we've found ourselves bumping up against our own edges, and how do we move through them? How do we navigate them? I'm curious if you could. I know that part of this conversation is about that journey that you took, within, and that shedding and letting go of the ego. But I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about some of the other ways that you navigate when you come up with those edge points within yourself. Because, yeah,
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I notice is that I'm more resilient. It doesn't take as long, or I can go deeper. So maybe the
yes,
challenge may be bigger, which is like actually a good sign because that
yeah,
means you're ready to face it, right? Um, I, I mean, I reach out for support. I don't
yeah.
try and do all this by myself. We're not meant to
Hmm.
do all this by ourselves, everyone. We're really not. And so I have mentors, I have friends, I have people I call. You're one of them, and you know, I I do the work that way. I don't do it alone. So
Hmm.
that's one thing, because one of the things that can happen when we face challenges is that we can immediately go into shame and we want to isolate and we want to stay like, okay, don't, like hide all those kinds of things. And so I really, I reach out for support first of all. And I just simply let myself. I use whatever tools are necessary in the moment. They're different.
Yeah.
You want a challenge, it's different. I have a whole toolbox of tools.
Hmm.
So it's like, what do I need right now? Do I need a hammer? Well, I shouldn't even talk in tool metaphors because I don't actually know what I'm talking about. I think I know how to use a hammer, but
Yeah.
what else is there? Screwdriver,
Screwdriver, a drill, a wrench.
I don't know. Like sometimes, like at times I will draw cards and journal, and at other times, actually, it doesn't feel good to me, and I'd rather do something else. Or, like
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that I can draw from,
Yeah.
and I use my intuition and my own inner knowing to, like, okay, what's needed here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes
I,
it's a Netflix marathon, everyone. Like,
right.
it's not like it's it's not just sitting cross-legged on a cushion and chanting, but sometimes it is. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You've over the last couple of years, you've added a lot more daily practice into your life and into your world, and I'm curious how that has shifted things as well for you. Like, how has that? Like, I know it's always been a part, but there was like a very conscious focus level that kind of shifted, like something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, recently I've discovered Kundalini, and so I've been doing that, and that has awakened like a level of energy and access to something beyond. I can't even explain it. You have to kind of do it in
Yeah.
order to even know what it like. It's like whoa. It's like the best cup of coffee
Mm,
without any caffeine. It's incredible. I
mhm.
started off as a meditator though. I'm a
Yeah.
Buddhist as well, and
Okay.
so I started off with a very strong, disciplined meditation practice. I don't have a strong disciplined meditation practice anymore. Um, but I kind of I will go in and out of it.
Yeah.
Um, but the Kundalini has really given me an incredible uh, amount of energy and resilience. It's very good for the nervous system. And I've also been working. I'm 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 learning Ayurveda. I've been learning it for a long time.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Getting there. I'm getting there.
Mhm.
But there's more to Ayurveda than the herbs and the food and all of that kind of thing. The thing I'm actually the most interested in is our rhythms and our cycles, and so I'm really I notice how I am at different times of day. I work with the energy that is present
Right.
for me at the time of day,
Mhm.
um, and that has made a huge difference for me.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I think that's, one of the I love that you touched in on that piece of like letting yourself go to different tools and that each time it calls for different tools from the toolbox and the way that your own practice has really evolved.
Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
been asking myself the question, even with the spiritual practices, does it feel good? Like, and there's a difference between feeling good in the moment and feeling good long term, right? So
Mm,
when
hmm.
you have when you have discipline, it doesn't always feel good.
Right,
So
right.
it does feel good to have the discipline, right, in the
Hmm.
practice.
Hmm.
But I've been asking myself, what do I want to be disciplined in? What practices actually feel good? Or am I trying to I mean, I'm going kind of deep here, but for example, for years I've been doing a on my birthday card spread. Very long, in-depth card spread on my birthday. It normally takes 3 hours, and it's my birthday ritual.
Hmm. Hmm.
This year I didn't do it.
Wow.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at those cards every month and have them tell me what my month was supposed to be like. It actually
Mm-hmm.
didn't serve me.
Hmm.
I love
Hmm.
cards. I'm still going to draw my cards, but I'm going to draw
Yeah.
them when I want to, not like as some kind of like here's what your month is supposed to be. It felt so good to let it go. I didn't
Yeah.
miss it.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful.
I'm even like I haven't even written in my planner for a month, and I'm getting lots done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, am I doing this to check off a box, or am I doing this because it's actually helping me? And I think the
Mm-hmm.
same is true in spiritual practice,
Yeah.
right? Where it can get kind of ingrained, or you think, okay, well, if I do this, then I'm like a better spiritual practitioner or something like that. But don't do it if it doesn't serve you.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the days when you don't want to do it, but you know it's like a good thing. Like that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a really big difference.
Because we were
But there
going by that,
is,
we'd never do anything,
yeah.
right? Because it
Yeah.
would,
Yeah. There's that like initiate that initial time where we're discovering, like what helps us. And then there's the like really refining. And it's like you're in that refining piece of like what is really supporting you. And I always talk about the momentum that we have moving forward in our lives. And that's really where sacred practice and spirituality and our rituals and all these amazing things that we do is like, does it flow into that momentum that of our life? Does it flow in, and or does it create distraction? And I think that's to me what I'm hearing as you're sharing this, like really refining those pieces. That's beautiful. Hmm.
thanks. And
Yeah.
I don't want to give anyone the impression that I don't love spiritual practice, or I don't love all these beautiful things. And if you're doing a birthday reading and it's serving you, like I'm so happy, and it served me for many
Yeah.
many years.
Yes.
I think when you, I mean, this is literally what I do full time every day, right? And so I'm thinking about kind of the nuance and the complexity around what practice is, and all of these kinds of things. And I'm always challenging myself
Yeah. Yeah.
to ask even myself hard questions. It's like, oh,
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's different questions that we ask at different points along our journey. And some of you listening may be at that place where this really, really resonates. And for some of you listening, it may not resonate because it's not a part of your path at this time. And maybe it will be at another time, and maybe it won't be. And that's perfect.
yeah,
Perfect. Like absolutely perfect. Because ultimately we each have a really unique journey. And that's the most important thing, to really honor how we're experiencing it in the now. So, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I would love to invite you to sink into the wisdom of the feminine, and really that, you said it so beautifully in your, I'm just going to look back at your bio, but you talked about bringing a breath of fresh air and vital leadership to the reemergence, reclamation, and cultural shift in divine feminine consciousness. And I would love to invite you to speak to that, because that is really at the heart of your work.
So I clearly have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm just trying
Yeah.
to organize them in my mind right now. Um, so we're living in modern times where questions of gender are really up. I'm a queer woman, and my partner is non-binary. And so one of the things, so I'm prefacing this with just with some kind of, again,
Context. Yeah.
complex understanding of gender and femininity, masculinity, all of these kinds of things. So when I'm talking about the divine feminine consciousness, what I'm talking about is these very, very like ancient, old archetypal resonances that still impact how we understand what being a woman and being a man mean in our world. And there are real mythic moments that have changed what we understand about gender. So just to
Mm.
know that. So it's one of the things that when I think about, well, why am I studying ancient Mesopotamia? Why am I studying ancient Egypt? Why do I love this ancient world and Crete and the goddess so much? Like what's happening there, especially when I have this understanding of gender in the modern world. And what I know to be true is that it's important that we understand how these things formed and how they changed and how they were perverted. What, like, because even with all of this, with this complexity and this, like, the fluidity of gender, much of the world and much of time has not had that understanding of gender. And it has had real material effects on biological women to the point of oppression, right? And so when we're talking about the reclamation, we're talking about how can we reclaim these parts of our psyche,
Mm,
right? So that we can actually be, again, full human beings on this
mhm,
planet, and that we can support each other in that. So it's actually the ancient world matters even now, because there
mhm,
are reasons why we think about light and shadow the way that we do. We think about the earth in the way that we do. There's a reason why the earth got connected to the goddess, got connected to women, and the earth and women were denigrated, right? So we live with body shame, sexuality shame. We live with a warrior culture, and not like Aurora warrior, pick up your sword, be a strong, powerful human being,
right,
but
right.
warrior culture in terms of the valorization of war. This this didn't happen before,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And so hopefully that's a very Cliff Notes version of kind of what I'm thinking in these realms.
Mhm,
And we're needing to we're really, as a wider world and a wider culture, if we want to unshackle ourselves from the ways in which we have been told what we're supposed to be, what our sexuality is, what our bodies are, what the earth is, what our connections to each other, how can we heal those wounds that we carry, and the way we relate to each other. Part of it's going back and remembering what it might have been, although, what it might have been is a very important question, and
right.
what it can be. That's the more important
Mm,
question. How can
mhm,
we move forward?
right.
But in order to move forward, at least for me, because I'm an anthropologist, I'm a scholar priestess in many ways. um, Tracing cultural imagination is important.
Mm, mhm. Can you
Otherwise, where
speak
are we
to,
going?
yeah, yeah. I love that phrase, cultural imagination. And when you said it, it landed. And I think like it's actually one that I'd love for you to speak to just a little bit more.
I'm really fascinated about ideas and where they came from,
Right,
and how they
right.
how they evolved through time and space.
Hmm.
So, for example, here's an example of how cultural imagination impacts the way in which we relate to each other and ourselves. So, culturally, the moon and shadow were not what they are today. The dark womb of the mother, the great mother, right? All the phases of the moon were celebrated. I think it's so interesting that in the kind of spiritual world, we celebrate the new moon and the full moon, and the new moon is new beginnings, and the full moon is this release, but also this, like, kind of expanded space. But we don't talk about the dark moon. It's one of those, isn't that interesting? Why don't we ever talk about the dark moon? Why
Hmm.
don't we celebrate the cave, the womb, the space of
Hmm.
nothing? Why do
Hmm.
we only celebrate the new moon
Hmm.
in this
Hmm.
in this particular
And
phase?
yeah, and so just to clarify, new moon and dark moon, same thing, right? Like same
Depend
day
yeah. Depend
ish.
Dark, I mean,
Where does it fall? Like, what's
so
the window?
different people have different languages around this,
Okay.
but so when I'm saying new moon in terms of the way it's understood now, it's normal. It's like that first. It's isn't it interesting? Yeah, people are calling the dark moon new moon, but new moon is really that first sliver. It's that first
Yeah.
little glimpse of light.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the dark moon
Is that
is
it's completely
dark.
absent. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
not be doing vision boards on the dark moon.
Right. Because it's the new, it's that beginning to awaken, but we should be
Why
going
don't we
into the
let
cave.
ourselves have
Yeah.
3 days a month where we
Mm-hmm.
can be in the dark, where
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to
Mm-hmm.
create, we don't have to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can simply be. So this is like one of
Mm-hmm.
the reclamations of the divine feminine way is
Yeah.
you can actually sink into other ways of being.
Yeah.
I'm a very
Yeah.
masculine person, I must must admit. So it's a challenge for me. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what would it actually be like for 3 days to just be like, ooh.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
it's like in the
yeah.
dark. Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry. I'm just like my mind's kind of wandering down like no, because I really track my energy. I really track like
Yeah.
where's my energy? Where does it peak? Where does it valley? Where do I have creative spurts? And my creative spurt is actually always from about 5 days before the new moon.
Me
And
too.
it is deep and it's boom, 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 boom. It is so on. And then after the new moon, it's like it comes out and then I'm ready to like just go to sleep for a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm thinking about this from the place of, the dark, like really honoring that phrase of and stage of the dark moon. So
The living
tangent.
of how we can remember, right? We can, like, because the phases were understood and tracked just as probably
Yeah,
tracked in a different way, but um
right.
when we're actually living rhythmically, whether that's with the sun or the moon, we do notice these shifts and changes. And part of the divine feminine way is to allow ourselves to have those experiences, to not override them in some way because the larger culture is telling us that we always have to be on, or our calendars are saying the same thing. um, and I also find like the 5 days, maybe the week leading up to the new moon, full moon, dark moon, would be my most creative as well. And actually, for an entire year, I wouldn't put anything on my calendar in that week.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I've since relaxed on that a little bit because I kind of work with the energy.
yeah,
Because even if I have something, like I can still be mostly down, like mostly,
right.
out or whatever. Um, but our understandings of what darkness means and the ways in which it's become evil as well, right? These have mythic roots.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to see it, all of a sudden you just, I think knowledge is power.
Yes, yes.
And if we want to change the future, if we want to change our lives in the present, knowing something about how it is that we got here is important.
Yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. It's really landing like in a whole new level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've been
So
thinking
I
a lot
know
about
that.
this.
Go ahead. What was that?
I've been thinking a lot about this because I've been mapping out the priestess program for next year, and so I've been asking myself, okay, how is this relevant? Why does it matter? What is like? Why are we
Yeah,
studying this?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm. That was a big part of your creative cave immersion that you're just coming out of. Yeah,
yeah,
mapping out. and remapping. Those of you who don't know, Vanessa offers a priestess certification program. And it's been really fun because now we've known each other for, it's probably close to a decade. And this is your ninth year offering a priestess program. And as we were sitting and kind of chatting before, Vanessa was sharing that she's reworking everything and kind of putting it into new position, new like bringing new pieces together in new ways. And it was really fascinating just to listen and
Yeah, I for a couple of years, it's a year-long program, and for a couple of years, I ran two cycles in a year.
okay,
So I
okay,
opened it at Samhain and at Beltane,
okay.
and then I realized, okay, just once a
That's a
year
lot.
is okay. So this will be the 10th cycle. So
Okay.
this will be the 10th
Wow.
cycle. So I'm
Whew.
taking the last nine and really seeing what worked.
Okay.
Because obviously I've grown since I
Yeah.
began it. I always think the best way to learn something is to teach it. I'm very
Hmm.
much a practice in public kind of person, and let's dive in. That is my best way to learn something is
Yeah.
to really guide others in it. And so yeah, I'm really looking at, okay, what 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 would be the penultimate
Yeah.
program
Yeah.
for the 10th cycle? And then what also is like, what pieces are missing and how can I add to those? And so I've been in the creative cave, and I've been
Yeah.
really thinking about what a very comprehensive priestess education is,
Hmm.
why it matters, I
Yeah.
think, to everyone. But
Yes.
I'm biased. Let's all be priestesses. And yeah, and how can I deliver that in a way that feels really, really good to
Hmm.
the people who are taking it? So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
year is going to be, yeah, really good.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So, Vanessa, we are kind of winding down, but I am curious, what crystal are you working with right now?
Let me choose one of my pale aqua. All right, I am
Now that sounds
surrounding
fun.
myself with blue aragonite.
Ooh, ooh,
I
ooh,
have
ooh,
so many little
yes.
chunks and pieces, and actually, I ordered
Hmm.
this from Greece, which is my soul home, and
Hmm.
they sent
Oh
me
my
extra.
gosh.
So even though I'd ordered like three, they still gave me like a little baby one, and so this beautiful, soothing. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. And it's interesting because the first time you asked me this question, it was chrysocolla, and I have that exact same piece on my desk still. So I have all these crystals, so I'm just going to pick them up.
Uh-huh.
So this is a gorgeous piece of chrysocolla. I actually,
Wow.
I am a bit of a crystal junkie, I suppose, and I've never seen a piece. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Um, is this, I say, Smithsonite? Am I saying that right?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah. I am not, it's not one that I've worked with, so, but
Also got it in
gorgeous.
Greece. Well, from
Whew.
a seller from Greece.
Yes, yes.
Um, and then I have this was my, every year I give myself a priestess gift, and this was my priestess gift last year. It's a gorgeous,
Is
huge
that
chunk of
Larimar?
Larimar. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my
It's
goodness.
like polished on one side and then rough on like raw on the other. And
Hmm.
I often hold this when I'm leading calls, or just like at my desk, I'll just hold this. And then I
Hmm.
have a gorgeous piece of lightning struck quartz beside me here as well. And I have a Lemurian crystal. I think there's more, but I think we're good. I've got some aquamarine, a bit of turquoise, some lapis,
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
morphite. But you'll notice a theme.
Yes,
This
yes.
color
Yeah,
is
is
very
yours. Yeah.
soothing.
Wonderful. So, Vanessa, where can people find you?
VanessaSage.com.
Yeah.
So head over to vanessasage.com, sign up for the love letters. You'll get access to a free 5-day goddess course. It's an e-course. You get a booklet at the end. And that is absolutely the best way to get in touch, stay in touch. So
Yeah.
I welcome you with open arms, and I really hope to see you there.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. And anything you would like to leave our listeners with today? Any final message?
How good are you willing to feel?
Woohoo!
One thing today that you just want, like, just, you think would just feel good. No reason other than feeling good.
Mm,
Let me
mm.
know.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for this amazing and wonderful and so much fun and deep and wise conversation. It's always a gift to spend time with you. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to each of you listening, I wish you all an absolutely beautiful day. And as always, shine brightly. Bye for now.